Okay, so as we look at the schedule, I really don't know if we'll get to calculating efficiency tomorrow. I think that's something that's hard to visualize, but today we were just discussing this in front of you students about whether you could say educational videos. I don't want to say movies because that's more so entertainment value, but when we do watch videos in here, you might think that they're boring, and that's just your opinion. But one of the things that these videos do is it helps us to, let's say, be an accessory to explaining this content. Because when you talk about calculating efficiency, how did we explain that yesterday? With moving. What is it that you do when you are moving to maybe a technical school, so you got to move to an apartment, or you're moving to a dorm, or you're moving from one part of the state to another? If you have a moving truck and you are taking maybe some of the appliances with you, is it easier to lift them up from the ground into the back of the truck, or is there a better way? Of course there's a better way, because we're telling you. One, you might even just put that in a box and slide that up the ramp, but there's even a better way than that. Something about wheels. Who said that? Forklift. Probably not a forklift, because not with, why would you have that if there's a ramp? Okay.
Dolly.
Yeah. It's got wheels on it. And someone said something about wheels earlier, but they didn't elaborate on that. Okay. So does any of that sound familiar? About moving and using a dolly cart. Okay. Do you have a license to drive one of them?
You don't need one.
Sometimes if I'm driving, someone might think we need one. Did someone's hand go up over here too? Oh. Do you have a license to drive that? No? Yeah, of course you don't need one, but we just like to throw that in there. All right. So moving forward then, what is a new formula that we have talked about in class?
Pressure.
Pressure is one. And pressure equals what?
Work.
Not so much work. Now, I know you can say, why are we going over these? Because I have this wrote down on my formula sheet. Really? Do we all have that wrote down on our formula sheet?
No.
Why is that?
Because we're lazy. Some people are lazy.
Oh, okay. So, I don't know. I don't know how else to explain that. Again, it's the best way that I know how to expand this content or information to yourselves. Okay, so pressure equals force over area. What is area measured in? Oh, not that big. Someone might have said it. Can you be a little more specific than just meters? Meters squared, okay, or centimeters squared. So then pressure was one formula. What's another new one?
Work.
So work equals what? Distance is part of it, yep. No. You have to apply a force in a specific direction, and that gives you work. And we talked about this before. What about if the distance given is 0? How much work are you doing? 0. Okay? And then the other new formula was that of power, which you are trying to calculate how efficiently are you doing work. You're just dividing the work by time. Okay. So I don't know how far we're going to get. The tough part about this on days like today is because you are still in here for another 42 minutes. The afternoon session is in here for 30 because it's an early dismissal today. But we will go ahead and move on for just a little bit, and then we will move forward to this. It's I think it's Egypt's Lost Skyscrapers, I think is what it's called. Okay? So we think of machines as something really, really complex. That's just in our nature. That's probably the first thing that we would think of. Just like maybe, excuse me, does anyone know what maybe a large bird of prey would be? It means it's a very big predator that flies.
Bald eagle.
Okay, so some of them might say hawks and eagles. That's just the first thing that you come up with. Okay, so when we think of machines, we think of these extravagant deals that move, that have motors, that have cylinders. All that is true. But again, machines can be something just as simple as this. Okay. Because when we say hawks and eagles, yes, those are very large predators. But you also have kestrels, kites, owls. Those are also birds of prey as well. Okay, so I think we're a little further than this. I just hit this once, and it likes to jump from spot to spot. And we did this, correct?
No.
Okay.
Increasing distance.
I gotta go back one? Okay, we say go back one. Okay. We've already done this. Okay.
Increasing distance.
No, we haven't finished. I didn't get popped the last one.
I think what we did, now you say this, I think we went down to here. Okay? So one of the things that I couldn't wait till summer. When I was your age, I couldn't wait till summer break got here. One, yes, we could say you're not in school anymore. I understand that. Yes, and you could go and get a job. How many of you do you think would like to do some of the same type of work that maybe some of your parents did working on the farm? Okay. Why not?
Because we don't live on one.
Well, I know, but just because you don't live on a farm, you can still work for a farmer.
Yeah, I could do it.
Okay? So, and this is, I don't want this conversation to go sideways where we say, well, like, right, Mrs. Herbert, back in our day when we were growing up. Okay? This is something that probably sounds foreign to you. You ever heard of walking beans before?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Farmers don't do that anymore. So, Mason, are you out there in the bean field walking beans? Not yet? Oh, you did? Oh, so was that for targeting specific weeds then? Milkweeds. So educate me on this. If you did not go out there and chop them, you sprayed them, right? But aren't the roots like tubers? You pull those milkweeds, then more are gonna keep shooting back again? Okay. So, but when we were walking beans, yes, you had a corn knife, so you could chop weeds like sunflowers, buttonweeds, you would pull them. You could, cockleburs, you would want to chop those, you could. But when it came to weeds like milkweeds, you would just spray them. You wouldn't want, but I'm not a farmer. I can't say that that's right or wrong. I just didn't think that's how you'd approach it. But more importantly, Round bales is probably a lot newer of an invention than what you might think. Now, when we say new, we're talking 30 years now. That is still, I would say, considered as new. So when you turn back the clocks 30 years, round baling really was not that common. At least I don't think it was. For big farmers, it probably would be. So if farmers weren't doing round baling, what were they doing with their alfalfa besides chopping up for silage? Yeah, square bales. Of course, we call them idiot blocks because you have to be an idiot to throw them, right?
No.
Do you like throwing bales? So what do you call that? I got to go throw bales. I go stack bales. What do you call it? You still call it throwing bales, okay? Well, one of the things that happens, okay, work done for lifting an object depends on the change in the height. So you are on this hay rack. How high are you stacking? I'm going to pick on you because, well, I'm not picking on you, but so how high are you stacking in 4 layers, 5 layers, 6 layers? How many high?
6, probably.
Okay, so, and probably when I was your age, it probably would be the idea of getting to that 6th layer. I might not be able to do that standing on the hay rack. But what could you do to maybe make it a little easier?
Make the stairs.
No, not making a stairs. That takes too much time. You can't do that on a moving hay rack. Well, you could, but we're not. How could you shorten that distance?
Put bales down.
Yeah, you're actually standing on a layer to make that distance a little shorter. So what happens, work done for lifting an object depends on the change in the height of the object. If you lift yourself a little higher by standing on a layer, you don't have to put as much force to lift that bale up there. Are you a good stacker?
I think so.
Well, there is. It's either yes or no. There's no think. Do they fall off on the way from the field to home? Well, then you're a good stacker then. Is this alfalfa or straw?
Alfalfa.
Well, not trick question, but what is easier to stack, alfalfa or straw?
Alfalfa.
Okay, that's why it's a trick question, because straw could be easier to stack because we consider it lighter, right? It's just not as dense as alfalfa. But why is it that alfalfa will stay on your hay rack so much better than straw will?
Because it's all heavier and it won't move.
But if you're stacking it correctly, it shouldn't matter the weight of it. Now, we're not thinking of this in farmers' terms. We're thinking of this in engineering terms. That's probably why might be going a little sideways. Has to deal with this. So what about the friction between those two substances? Say that again. So which one? Why are you right? What's true about you say, if I say chaff to you two, what does that mean? Anything? No? Isn't that like the shaft of the oats that are left over? Because the combine takes care of the oats, chops them all off, and then the back end, it throws off all the stems coming out the back end of the combine, right? And then those stems you wrap up for baling, right? I call that chaff. I don't know if that's right. Is that what you would call it?
Yeah.
Okay. So which one creates more friction, the chaff of alfalfa or the chaff of oats and straw? The straw, like you pointed out, is much more slippery. So you tilt that back in just a little bit, and sometimes those bales would just slide right off of there. But not according to you, because you're a good stacker. I'm just curious. Can you go straight up without any walls?
No.
So you're not that good then. I'm not either, but I'm just wondering if you are. Because some people can stack these bales outside without any exterior walls and they'll go straight up and they will stay there. I'm not that good. I got to have a wall for it to lean up against. Well, yeah, you might do that too, but eventually when you get just so high, it's just not gonna help that much because you have just a little bit of weight tilting over. If it's 15 feet up off the ground, any more weight tipping forward, then the whole stack falls down. Okay, so enough of that. Let's go ahead and keep moving here. Because what we want to do is in these, it's called Egypt's Lost Treasures, Egypt's Lost Skyscrapers. They talk about ramps and using simple tools, which I hope that you don't look at that and start eye rolling and falling asleep. I mean, it is something that has advanced us in our engineering technology. So one of the things I want you to think about, back to your earth science days now, and I'm going to just, sorry, Mr. Williamson, I'm going to totally get this wrong. Your three basic types you classify rocks as what? Is it sedentary, metamorphic, and does any of this sound familiar? But then when we look at some of the physical characteristics of these rocks, is there any that really are more dense than any other? And it starts with a G. In other words, don't take it for granted. Yeah, don't take it for granted. Oh, I mean, don't take it for granted. Yeah. See, that's where you say, that was a funny one. Yeah, I know, see? Don't take it for granted. Yeah. So what's true about granite? And obviously it must be pretty... Okay, you caught my attention. What is that?
What, this? Just posing. Just for fun.
Does that mean anything to you? Okay. So, but anyway, granite is quite a dense rock. It takes a lot to, let's say, move that, excavate it. And for anyone who's familiar with I used to say northwest side of Sioux Falls, but now it's just more so the west side. The interstate almost goes right by this on 12th Street. You look left, and you could say you're looking down into a big hole. There's a big, I don't know what you call it, granite mine or granite quarry. That's a better way of looking at it. Oh, yeah. Of course, Del Rapids has one too. But if you want to mine that quarry, how do you do that? Because it's such a dense rock.
You have to get crazy. Make ramps?
That might be for harvesting it, moving it, but not harvesting it. Because if it's in the side of the dirt now, they probably did at one time, but we don't have anyone. Nice. Yeah, you're going to blast that out of there. Okay? So, which leads to the next question is, how did you do that before dynamite? Well, you would have to use pickaxes, like you said, but you could also do this here as well. So when we're talking about changing direction and things, the jack, we know when you're pumping down on a hydraulic jack or a mechanical one, you're applying a force downward, the resulting one is moving upwards. It's a change in direction. Here, okay, you can also use that of a wedge. You said pickaxes. You'd probably do that to maybe make a hole, put a wedge in there, and then you take a hammer and you hit that, and eventually it splits in two directions. Does anyone still like have a wood burning stove or something to that effect? So you probably have a log splitter now. Does that sound right? So before you had a mechanical log splitter, you probably used wedges or an axe. And an axe is a wedge too. You're just applying a force downward and then it splits sideways. So a lot of the modern inventions that we see now are predicated on inventions that were thousands of years ago. And we probably can't build things today like the ancient civilizations did years ago. Okay, I don't think we can show that on the Science Channel. So we're going to stop here for today, and then we're going to apply that, what we're watching, to the Science Channel into the curriculum here in just a moment. So next week, I will formally assign the vocabulary, and there might be some that we need to discuss, okay, that might not be in the back of the book, but we'll point you in the right direction. Okay, so that's all I have. We'll start that video here in just a moment. We'll catch up to you next time.